Hi everyone, it's me, Sandy Cruz of Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. For years now, I've been bringing to you conversations about wellness from experts from all over the world. Whether it be suggestions in how you can age better, biohacking, alternative wellness, these are conversations to help you live your best life. I want to live a long, healthy, and vibrant life. Never mind all those stigmas that as we reach midlife and beyond, we're just going to shrivel up and die with some horrible disease. Always remember, balanced living works. I really look forward to this season. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, my special guest is Dr. Marlene Siegel. Marlene is a holistic veterinarian, and I have a lot of people who follow me who have pets and are like me, and you do pretty much anything for your pet. They are your little babies that never grow up. And I thought it's really important to have a conversation on how we can optimize our pets' lives. So I think you're going to love this episode. Follow Dr. Marlene anywhere on the socials. She's amazing. Please follow me on Substack. I'm writing a lot there these days, and they are short, explorative health essays on how we can optimize our health and wellness through so many different means. And by health, I don't mean only science, although science might come into play. It's all about the body, the mind, the spirit, the soul, and how we can age better. These are essays that I don't think anybody's writing this way like I am. And I do have some of my own natural health protocols in there for prevention. So follow me there. It's Sandy Cruz, SandyKruse.substack, SUBSTACK.com. The link will be in my show notes. Also, I am most active on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, on Facebook. Just look for Sandy K Nutrition everywhere. I've kind of taken a little break from Rumble and YouTube. I felt a little disheartened by just some censorship stuff that's going on with YouTube. I just wasn't feeling very good about it and it didn't resonate with me. So, doesn't mean I don't have stuff there. So go follow me, preferably on Rumble. Let's see if I can grow my audience there. And I'm going to ask you to rate and review this podcast. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means. Rating is when you give the stars, 5 stars, hopefully. And reviewing is when you actually write a few kind words that really can help somebody decide whether or not this podcast is for them. I don't think you can do the review on many other platforms. You can on Apple, but I would really appreciate if you do that. And I would really appreciate it if you share this episode with at least one friend. So there's your homework. That's helping give back to me energetically for me putting out a podcast each and every week just to help you live your best life. And now let's cut on through to this amazing interview with Dr. Marlene Siegel, holistic veterinarian. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, I have Dr. Marlene Siegel. She is a holistic veterinarian, deeply devoted to championing the well-being of pets and empowering pet parents and fellow veterinarians to explore alternative methods to achieve optimal pet health. She has nearly 4 decades of experience in veterinary medicine, and through advocacy, mentorship, and unwavering dedication, Dr. Siegel strives to leave a lasting impact on the world of veterinary medicine so our pets can thrive instead of just survive. And in this podcast, most of you who follow me know I love my dogs. I still say dogs, even though I had one pass away in 2022. I still have my other one. And I just have to say, when my other dog got sick, I felt so helpless because I'm a practitioner for humans. And anybody who understands their pets knows that a lot of the things that are good for us are not good for our pets. And so Dr. Siegel is going to talk to us today about all of this and especially longevity. How can we keep our beautiful little animals with us for a longer time? So, with that, welcome, Marlene. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation and including the fur world with your audience.
I think this is a very important podcast episode for many reasons. Because, you hear of a lot of people who went and rescued animals during COVID. I know that you're in a different part of the world than I am, but during that time, a lot of people felt very isolated, very lonely, and we know how critically important our animals are to our overall well-being. So I think it's always good to start about, tell me about your story. How did you become a veterinarian? How did you start here?
Oh, I started from the minute I could crawl and talk. I always was playing with animals, as with stuffed animals. I even rescued lizards from the deck. I lived in South Florida, so a lot of geckos and a lot of lizards. And I wasn't allowed to have an animal until I was almost 12 years old. So I was adopting wild animals, injured birds. Friends from school would bring their sick hamsters, and I would be the one that carried it to the vet. And I had this amazing veterinarian that was in walking distance of my home, and he would take care of the animal, not charge me, and then send me out with whatever I needed to care for that animal. I was a kid. It was amazing. And because of him, I've always paid that forward in my entire career. I have volunteers in my office every year, and I encourage them to follow their passion and their desire to work with animals. So that's where I started, working with stuffed animals and playing as if they were real.
Yeah.
I got my first dog because my mom was in the hospital having a female procedure done, and we stopped in the gift shop, and there was this little ceramic cat with blue eyes, little, fake blue eyes. And my dad bought it for me because I was nuts about anything that had an animal in it. And I fed it, I talked to it, I bathed it. My dad thought I thought it was really real. And he's talked to my mom and he said, "No, we can't have our child walking around thinking the ceramic cat is real. We need to get her a pet." So if I would have known how easy that was, I would have done it years earlier.
Yeah.
I got my first dog and then eventually got a horse, and my career was started. So that was my introduction into the veterinary world. I always knew I wanted to be a vet. But then about 15 years into my career, I had a little bit of a twist. Now, I've always been intuitive. I've always had a sixth sense. But one of my show horses and my youngest daughter were involved in a riding accident during a horse show. And the horse ended up rearing in the air. And when she did, my daughter wasn't taught to just jump off the horse and jump to safety, because when a horse rears in the air, the concern is that they will fall over and crush the rider. And that was eminently was going to happen because my daughter was hanging from the reins, trying not to fall off, and she was literally pulling the horse over backwards. And this horse, I'm watching her from the railing. It all happened in a split second, but I could see her squat on her left hind leg. And she pushed herself as hard as she could in the opposite direction of where my daughter was starting to slide off the saddle. But when the horse hit the ground, you couldn't see space between her and my daughter.
Oh.
When the horse caught her breath and got up, I was already jumping over the rail and heading towards my daughter, but my daughter wasn't moving. And so I didn't know what I was going to find when I got there. My mind was just blank. By the grace of God, she was fine. She opened her eyes and she was just a little shook up and embarrassed that she'd fallen off. And we thought that was the end of the story. But it happened a couple more times where the horse started having something wrong. The third time it happened, I was standing right next to her. And it looked like there was a seizure going up her left limb and all the way up into her neck, and her head was twisting. I ended up having equine veterinarians come out and look at her, and they said, we don't know exactly what's wrong with her, but we'll tell you she's not safe to ride. She'll never be shown again. And your two choices are you can put her out to a pasture or you can put her down.
Mm.
And it was those words that ignited something in me that forever changed my personal life, my professional life, and my commitment to every single parent. Because I knew that that was not the answer. I knew that there had to be more that we could do. The doctors that I was dealing with just didn't know anything else. And so I had to leave the traditional allopathic box and start looking in areas where sometimes answers didn't exist in the veterinary world. And I had to create them. So I would take information from the human world of functional medicine, which was new at that time, and even on the human side, and extrapolate that into how I was dealing with my horse. And I will tell you that 5 months later, this little dynamic duo went on to win the United States Reserve Youth National Championship. So after being told that she would never be ridden again, after being told that I should put her down or put her to a pasture, I didn't heed those words. And the message I want to send to your audience is never, ever let someone define your possibilities. Because when we take charge of our own health, when we start to own our own responsibility and we seek answers, maybe where they don't exist, we can do amazing things with our lives and with the lives of those that we love around us. So ever since then, I have never uttered those words, there's nothing more I can do for you, to any client. And sometimes it's been challenging. Sometimes there's those moments where you go, oh my gosh, I don't know. This is so hard. And we're so far behind the eight ball. But then I realized that even offering comfort, even offering quality of life, whether it's a few hours, a few days, or a few years, that's what they're really asking me to do, is give them that quality of time. So that's been my commitment ever since.
It's beautiful. And there's definitely a lot of similarities between your journey, your story, the way traditional veterinarians operate, and traditional Western medicine.
Yeah.
A lot of similarities. And obviously, like, I'm not, this isn't about my story, but I know many humans who have changed their life around as soon as they stepped outside of the box and the constraints. And I think that that's really important as a pet parent, that we learn a little more about this because of the value these pets have in our lives, And if I look back and before I had animals, so I came from farming parents, Eastern European, where the animals served a purpose. They were working on the farm for a reason. They might have had cats, but those cats were to catch the mice in the house. They might have had a dog, or two, but the dogs were there to guard the property. They were all working animals. And so as a child, I didn't have, I think we tried, but we didn't have pets in the house. So once I had my own household, we got our first dog. And before that, I never really understood why people were so attached to their animals. I didn't get it, right? Because unless you have a pet, you don't get it. But when my dog passed away, Marlene, it was so depressing because these animals are with us all the time. They're always there. They're at our side. They're looking at you. They're going for a walk. Like, they're always there. So they're so important. So I think starting with diet, which is a big thing. Oh my God, it's so confusing, even for myself as a nutritionist, where to begin. Because I remember when my Shih Tzu was sick, I was making I was making her food for her for a while, but I obviously was missing a lot of crucial nutrients because she didn't look healthy. She was losing weight. Her fur didn't, and I'm like, I just didn't know what to do. And then if I was giving her no grains, she would have diarrhea. And like I didn't know what to do. So how do we know what to do?
Before we do the diet, you opened up a little area that I want to go ahead and explore because you were talking about how pets have changed people's lives and the relationship between the pets have changed dramatically over the years.
Yeah.
You used to have, you were a pet owner, and then they became part of your family. So then they were a family member. And now we're seeing soul pets. And these are animals that have tremendous significance to people. They are animals that are not just companions, but these are animals that have come to help somebody heal in a deep emotional way.
Oh my God, yes.
Just a little bit because you open the door and it's such an important piece. I think they are fur angels. I think they come into our lives. I don't, first of all, going in the woo woo world, nothing happens by accident, nothing. So understanding that everything has a reason and a purpose, then there's not a coincidence that you have a particular animal in your life that has a particular challenge in your life at a particular time in your life when it's important for you to come to an awakening or a consciousness. So that's step number one. Step number two is that these animals teach us so much. The top of the list is unconditional love because we can walk out of a room and when we come back, they are so happy to see us.
Yeah.
But also, they help to lighten the burden of our very heavy fifth dimension. So when we are upset and we're crying and we're sad or we're angry or we're frustrated, who is it that comes over and lays on our lap or puts their head under our hand and just is there quietly? And as we put our hand out and we start to pet them or hold them or cry on their shoulder to speak, what happens is we start to feel less heavy. The pain starts to go down. And what's happening is we're actually entraining our energies. So they are literally saying to us in an energetic way, here I am. I'm going to help you carry that heaviness and I'm going to make the world a little lighter for you. And when we become aware of that, it's a beautiful thing because now we realize that we are not here to suffer. We are here to start making changes. And we start to recognize that the experiences that we're having, we can have them through the lens of this is a gift. And trust me, I understand when we're having challenges and there's some really ouchy points in our lives, just to say, oh, this is a gift. Yeah, it's hard. And I'm not demeaning the situation. However, if we can take a deep breath, if we can start getting in a more parasympathetic state, then we can start to allow thinking and consciousness and intuition and help from our universe, from God, to help guide us to answers because we really are receiving them. But if you're in such a wired state, if you're so much pain and such a high sympathetic state, then you can't receive. And the animals help us to get into a more parasympathetic state where we have that opportunity to not only receive, but to start the healing process.
You know, I don't even know if you know my story. I don't even know if you would. It's just amazing that you touched on that just because my first dog that we got it right after my daughter was diagnosed with cancer. And see, I'm going to get like teary-eyed here, Marlene. Wow.
I've got chills going through my entire body.
So, you know how you're talking about these pets serve a sole purpose. They have a purpose here. So my dog Bella, my daughter was diagnosed with a soft tissue sarcoma. She's fine now. She's turning 18. But she was 5 at the time. And we're like, are we insane? And people were like, are you crazy getting a puppy right now? Like, what's wrong with you? And something within me said, okay, this is the first dog I'm ever getting, but I'm going to get this dog because I think it'll be very good for our family. It will be really good to not focus on sickness and the surgeries that she had. So we literally got little Bella in between my daughter's 2 surgeries as a puppy, 8 weeks old. So people were like, you're insane. I'm like, okay, maybe I am. But at the same time, it was like she was an absorber of that heavy energy of having a child diagnosed with cancer. And then, okay, just to make this longer story short, she passed away in 2022 when my daughter was going to finally be released from Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children with her final, "You're 18 now, you're going to be okay." And she passed away then. And, a lot of people so she passed away a few months before my daughter's last appointment at the Toronto Hospital for Sick Kids. And, often I'm like, okay, she was my learning dog. She was my learning pet. I learned about unconditional love. I learned about patience. And I learned that she really had an important role in our family. And it's like I had this guilt. I'm like, I had to forgive myself for ignoring her all the times that, I was preoccupied with things that were going on with my family and illnesses and things, because I was diagnosed with cancer 1 year after my daughter. And this little dog, it was like she was our little ball of happiness during that time. And then she's like, okay, it's time for me to go. You guys are all okay now. And your daughter, so I just had to stop and tell you that story because I didn't think you would have known that. But holy emotional, Marlene.
Yeah, that is amazing. So you and I'm sure she brought you to awarenesses that you may down the road you would have, because I think the universe comes back at us if we miss the road sign. Oops, make a U-turn. Oh, you missed it. Okay, well, I'll put it in front of you again.
Yes.
Opportunities to see these things, but sometimes it takes that big event, the one that knocks you on your hiney, that says, no, you need to stop and you need to become conscious now. And then you need to make changes now. And then that puts us on a whole new trajectory. So when we look back and we see where we are today, and we look at all of those serendipitous occurrences that help to put us on our path, it's remarkable, all the different things. Because when Lily and Demi had their riding accident, I had 12 employees, busy practice. I really couldn't put one more thing on my plate. And yet, what happens is this horse saves my daughter's life, and nothing was more important than to save that horse and put her back into a state of health.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me down a path that I would never have expected. In fact, I used to be really shy. I couldn't say my name in front of a group of 3 people. I couldn't stand up in front of a group of 3 people and say 2 words. I was really, really shy. And then something awakens in you, and then you have this purpose and passion, and whatever your limitations were, whatever you thought was holding you back, it becomes a past story, because all it is stories.
Yeah.
And then it's your opportunities to stand into really what your power is. My first speaking opportunity was at the Truth About Cancer in 2017. I was asked to do a keynote speech presentation in front of a live audience of 1,500, and it was live streamed to 192 nations and over 10 million people watching.
Wow.
And all the people Ty Bollinger could have asked, he asked me. And I got on that stage. The guy that was miking me up, he goes, "Oh, so where have you spoken before?" And I went, "Oh, never, nowhere." In his breath, and he looks over my shoulder and he looks up at me and he goes, "Are you okay?" I go. And that was really my first large speaking engagement. And now I speak internationally, and I've never looked back. So when people feel like they're being small, or they don't have a voice, or they're afraid of something, it really is just that opportunity speaking to you, saying, that's what you need to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like the abacus, the counting game that the Romans played. We played it as a kid. It had wires, and then you took the little dial and you moved it from one side to the other. Right. So for me, that's what emotions are. We have the spectrum of emotions that they're from the lowest to the highest. And I think for me, the game of life in our human experience is that we're supposed to identify those low vibrating emotions and move them to the other side, right? But you have to become conscious of the fact that that frequency is there, and what's the meaning of it, And then you get to decide, do I need to keep that frequency? Is it serving me a purpose? And if it is, by Jove, you keep doing it. But if it's not serving you, if it's holding you back from the greatness that you came here to be, then that's your opportunity to shift it. And it's a whole other podcast, but I think that was really a very powerful start to the conversation, is that number one, we're not here by accident. We all chose to show up at this particular time in the universe. And interestingly enough, it is the most amazing time with all the chaos and with all the negativity, with all the polarization. It's also the most profound time for us to make a difference in the world. You and thousands of people in your podcast by sharing information. Where in the history of our world could you ever have reached so many people?
True.
My program is Transforming Vet Medicine. Now, I'm not trying to do it in a confrontational way, which I think is also very interesting, because in our past, before 2020, the Mayan calendar, when it changed, we were in a world of competition. I love to study Greg Braden, famous guy, amazing, lots of wisdom. And he said we entered into a world of, instead of competition, of cooperation. And how interesting that when I did Transforming Vet Medicine many, many years ago, it was with the intention that we would join hands with all the industries, and together we would make a difference, because the end game is we want our animals to be healthier and happier, live longer, and live with longevity and quality of life.
Yes.
We're doing the work that we're doing for, and same with you for people. So now that we're starting to become more conscious of the things that we're doing that actually cause dis-ease, now it's our opportunity to take control back from the narrative of fast, cheap, and convenient, which we've all been sold on.
Yes.
And for a long time, we thought that was enough. But now we're seeing the consequences of that are shortened lifespans, lots of chronic disease at rates we've never seen in the world, worse in animals than in people.
Yeah.
So right now, the cancer rates in dogs, we're just talking cancer, is 1 out of 1.65.
Wow.
Relevant. I am diagnosing cancer often in animals under the age of 6, advanced cancers.
Wow.
Right. I have a dog right now that's 3 years old, and we're dealing with his cancer. So it is a really big problem. Cats, they say, is 1 out of 3, highly underreported. But then when we include obesity, autoimmune disease, gastrointestinal diseases, osteoarthritis, we're talking almost 100% of the animals that we're dealing with are showing up with some form of chronic disease. Now, with that piece of information, now let me go into answering your question.
Yeah, I know. We kind of went off there, but that's okay, because
Stage to understand where we came from and where we need to go.
yes.
And
And
it's not about bullying and shaming. It's not that allopathic veterinarians are wrong or they're bad. They are the most caring, loving group of people in the entire working industry. Never met one that I couldn't stand behind and say they have great intention. But you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And we were taught to name it, blame it, and then come up with a pharmaceutical.
yes.
Not bioregulatory medicine, which is understanding the body's biology and the impact that the biological systems have on our health or lack thereof. So that's the stage.
Yeah, and one thing I will also say is, as an RHN, I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I will say one thing. We know how critically important the foundation to healthy whole foods is for humans' health. So I'm going to just assume that it's the same for animals. And then
100%.
I'm going to set the stage for you, Marlene. So there you go.
Thank you. And we're going to talk about species appropriate, because I would not feed a hummingbird the way I feed a carnivore, right?
Right, right.
And dolphins eat different than maybe the squirrel that's in my yard. So we have to start going back to critical thinking, and we have to start looking at nature for our answers. I'm a huge fan of nature because when people come to me and they go, well, I don't see any scientific evidence of blah, blah, blah. We just came from a lecture by a large box company, which I will not mention the name. And this person was trying to say that, yes, cats are obligate carnivores, but it's okay for them to eat carbohydrates. Well, I disagree because if you, and then his answer was there's no scientific proof to show that they can't eat carbohydrates. But if you look at nature, and to me, nature trumps anything, you don't see wild animals that are carnivores, bears, lions, tigers, big cats, wolves, and such like that. Their primary diet is another animal. So they kill that animal and they eat it in the state that they killed it in. Now, we will see wolves who, if they're starving and they're not a good hunter, then they may go dig up some tubers and they may go eat some vegetables because they are starving and that's the only thing that they can find. But that is not their species appropriate diet, and that is not the diet that they're going to thrive on. So I want to make that distinction because we have people that they're vegan. That's great. If a person chooses their own diet, because we're omnivores, we get to make decisions on what we want and what feels good for our bodies. But our dogs are biologically designed to be a carnivore, and our cats are biologically designed to be an obligate carnivore.
Obligate? Hold on. What's obligate?
They have no dietary requirement for carbohydrates. They have not evolved to biologically be able to process large amounts of carbohydrates. Now, how did they get their carbohydrates? Because obviously they got some. When they ate the intestinal tract of the animal that they just hunted, that animal was eating grasses and leaves and foraging as an herbivore. They were eating foliage. And when they were digesting that, it became fermented in their gut. So it's broken down now into a fermented, usable form for the carnivore who is going to now eat that herbivore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, totally.
So when people say, like this guy from this large box company, that it's okay, their diet, they make a processed food diet that is 40 to 60% carbohydrates, and it is causing death to our cats. So the number one cause of death in cats is kidney disease. So let me explain why this is important. Cats come from the desert, first of all. And that means that they are already designed to be a dehydrated species. They didn't have a lot of water in the desert. And pet owners or cat owners, they know that their cats love when the water's running, the toilet's running, the sink is running. They come over and they take their paw and they're scooping the water, or they go to their water bowl and they start to paw in it to see if it's moving. And that's because instinctually they know that running water is safer water to consume. So instinctually, they know what they're looking for. Even though they're now living in a modern world, they haven't evolved to get rid of those instinctual principles. So then we have these animals that are used to getting 70% of their moisture from their diet because they ate their prey without preserving it into a kibble. They didn't dehydrate it. They didn't stick in a can. They didn't add preservatives and hormones, chemicals, and all that stuff to it. Now, if I had a cup of water and I had a swimming pool and I put the same amount of toxin in both, same amount of toxin in the cup of water and the swimming pool. Well, if you drink the water from the cup, it's far more concentrated and it's going to have a bigger impact on you. Where the water in the pool, that toxin becomes so diluted that it doesn't have the same biological effect. So now you take this cat who is already a titch on the dehydrated side because of their natural tendencies, and then you feed them a kibble diet, which is devoid of all moisture. It's been sucked out and dried, baked at high temperatures to get rid of the pathogens. And now you're taking them and saying, here, eat this dehydrated food. They don't have a strong instinctual drive to drink more. So now they become far more dehydrated, and all those toxins that they're exposed to become more concentrated in their body and create more damage the kidney tubules, and hence kidney disease is the number one cause of death in cats. Cancer's coming right behind them, but
Yeah.
kidney disease is the number one. So the fact that we've taken these cats and we put them on these dehydrated foods because it's convenient to fill the bowl, and then all day long they can come over and nibble, which again, it is biologically wrong for them, because when they're eating all day long, they never go into a state of autophagy. They never go into where they can start. Autophagy is where the body starts to clean up its dead and dying and used up cells, and it repurposes them and puts them into a new system. This is how we were biologically designed to thrive. And we have to do the same thing. But when we are eating as humans 14 to 18 hours of the day, and the only time you don't eat is when you have those 6 or 7 hours of sleep, and then you get right back up again and you're eating again. Same thing happens with us. We never go into that state of fasting, natural state that helps our body to clean up. And it's even worse for our animals because we're inundating them with these calories that are so bad for them. It's all full of inflammatory mediators and it's causing leaky gut. And no surprise that cancer rates are so high in our pets. So it's really the same story for dogs, but in cats, it's even more enhanced.
Okay. So then kibble, what you're saying is all kibble bad?
100%. Can't make it any nicer.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is why. First of all, a kibble diet is devoid of all digestive enzymes. When we eat living food, that living food has enzymes, which are really just short proteins that help to break that food down. That's why when you put your apple and you drop it, it gets a bruise. It very quickly starts to decompose because you've broken some of the cells. It releases the enzymes in the apple cell that break down sugars. And that's why it rots. When people die, if we don't get embalmed, they're going to start to decompose and rot same way, because as our protein, as our muscles start to break down, it releases these proteolytic enzymes that are in living tissue that help to digest more protein and more protein and more protein until you decompose. You go back into the cycle of life. Well, with these animals, they don't have digestive enzymes in their mouth to digest carbohydrates, which is another reason why we can prove they were not designed to be the primary eater of a carbohydrate. The second reason we know that they're not a primary eater of carbohydrates is because they don't chew their food. Now, most pet owners know this.
Oh, yeah.
They tear, gulp, and swallow.
Yeah.
In nature, that was an important survival mechanism because here you are, you're a carnivore in the wild. You wake up in the morning, you're hungry. So you're driven to go out and hunt for something to eat. You find something, you chase it down, you wrestle with it. You're making a big commotion out there in the big Serengeti plain. And what are you going to attract but other predators? They're going, oh, there may be a free meal around here somewhere. And when you're eating, you're distracted. You're not paying attention to the noises behind you because you're tearing, gulping, and swallowing. So nature intended them to be able to kill something, eat as quickly as they can, stuff themselves with meat when it's available, because you don't know when your next meal is going to be. You may not be a successful hunter that night, or maybe for a couple of nights. And so you have to eat as much as you can at the time that you have it available. Then you go into your hiding place where you are safe, and that's where you digest when you're back into a parasympathetic state. Because when you're chasing something down, you and your prey are both in a high sympathetic state, right? Because you're having to run really hard.
Yeah.
And you go back into a parasympathetic state where you have your digestion. So number one, dogs and cats do not chew their food, because why would they biologically waste energy doing that in a system where it's no need to do that? So they don't have amylase in their saliva. Then because they don't have amylase in their saliva, digestion for them begins in the gut. So it's super important that they get those carbohydrates pre-digested for them in the way of the fermented intestines. Isn't that amazing?
Okay. I have a lot of questions now because I've actually, I watch a lot of more holistic veterinarians. I'm starting to learn. I am by no means any kind of expert on canines, except for that I'm a dog owner, but I kind of do things the regular way, like most people do. So let me review this. And this is a question for you because I've seen this. They say never take your dog for a walk immediately after they eat. Is that one of the reasons? Because you were saying that their enzymes really come in later when they're in a parasympathetic state, that they're actually starting to digest after as opposed to while they're eating. Does that make sense or no?
I've heard that before.
I have. They say take your dog for a walk before and then wait about 45 minutes to an hour after they're done eating to take them for a walk after.
Well, the reason for that is because the eating process stimulates evacuation of the colon. So after they eat, within a reasonable period of time, they're going to need to poop.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason more so
Mm.
that you walk them, wait a few minutes after they've eaten and go for a walk is because they're going to need to go to the bathroom.
Well, I don't know. Like I let my dog out immediately after. Anyway, but the whole thing is the enzymes. And then there's, people are getting like I had to get a slow feeder for my dog because she would vomit, like, because she would eat so fast. So here I am thinking a slow feeder is a good idea, but I'm also feeding her kibble. So, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, Marley.
Yeah, let's break the myth. So for any pet parent who says my dog's a picky eater, or they have a day or so in the month where they have a grumbly tummy,
Yeah.
or they just kind of walk past the food and not super interested, but they'll come later and take a couple of bites. 100% those animals have leaky gut, dysbiosis, and they do not have healthy digestion. End of story.
Okay.
Because when you fix the gut, these guys go back to eating voraciously. So let's go back to that model of in the wild. Do you ever see lions who are hungry walk past a herd of gazelles? No. They are motivated to eat because they have this beautiful hunger drive because their stomach is telling them it's time to eat.
Yeah.
Because you have to sustain yourself with energy. And so they'll expend the energy to do that. But in our world where we're feeding these animals so inappropriately, we're giving them tons of carbohydrates in their diet, which they weren't designed to have. We're enzymatically killing their diet. So these proteins and living enzymes in food are destroyed over, some people say 105 degrees, some people say 120 degrees, whatever. It's a pretty low temperature that you destroy those proteins that are your enzymes breaking down the food. So now, if they're always eating enzymatically dead food, the only thing they can digest with is their pancreas. And over a period of time, there's a finite amount of enzyme in the pancreas. And now they're going to have poor digestion. They're not going to make as much hydrochloric acid because they're using up all their stores. They're not making enough hydrogen in their gut, which is used to help make hydrochloric acid because they have dysbiosis in the gut. It's one layer after another. And we are 100% causing it because we're not feeding a species appropriate diet. Now, you drive a car, I would presume. Yes.
Yep. Of course.
What kind of gasoline do they tell you to put in your tank for your car?
Premium.
And if you used regular every time you filled the tank, would your engine run as well?
You know what? I'm one of those really bad lease people that puts in regular because I lease my car and gas.
Then you get it back. But intuitively, you know your car's not going to run as well.
Yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm like, I don't own the car. I lease it. So, and gas is insane here. So I'm one of those.
For you, that wasn't probably the best example. But for the average owner of a car, if we're told what kind of gasoline to use, we try to follow the rules.
Yes.
We made a big investment for most of us that own our cars. We make a big investment. We want it to last longer. We don't want to have problems that make us take it into the dealership and have to deal with all of that cost. The animal body is unlike a car in that it has the ability to adapt. Your car has no ability to adapt. It's a machine. It doesn't repair itself. It doesn't fix the skin of the car when you get into an accident. If it rusts, it doesn't repaint itself. But the body of our pets and ourselves has this regenerative capacity. It also has the ability to go into survival mode until circumstances improve So then you go back to thriving. The problem in our modern world is we have gotten stuck in surviving, and we're asking the body to make adaptations to hang in there while it's waiting for things to get better. But the problem is it never gets better until a pet owner starts to realize that, oh, what I'm doing is causing problems. It's a health issue. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the first thing I want to establish is we need to feed a species appropriate diet. And
so what is that?
A raw diet.
So raw food. And okay, I have to stop you here because I know that I have tried that and my dog gets very loose stools.
Well, the reason is because you haven't fixed the gut first.
Okay.
And we have to heal the leaky gut. We have to replace the digestive enzymes because these guys have used.
So like supplement them?
We have to supplement the digestive enzymes. We have to build up the hydrochloric acid. We have to rebuild the microbiome. Okay. Because we've decimated it. Most pet parents have spayed and neutered their animals. They've been on antibiotics. They're eating processed foods. They're getting hormones, chemicals, pesticides, genetically modified ingredients. All of this is leading to the damage to the microbiome and the damage to the tight junctions in the gut. So if you just change the diet without fixing the gut, the body's trying to repair, it's trying to fix itself. But when we help it, and then we make that transition slowly, it's a whole new ballgame.
Okay. So raw food is not the same. So people who are listening, I want to make sure that they understand because I have on numerous occasions been told that, my dog has allergies. It's probably to the food. Take this canned food that we sell and it's meat in a can. That is not raw food, correct?
No, that's processed food.
It's also processed.
But it just has moisture still left in it.
Okay.
So canned food, so highly processed, cooked at high temperatures, enzymatically dead, a lot of synthetic nutrients added back in to try to make it wholesome, but it's not wholesome.
Okay. Because
because I think this is important. Before we get too far, I want people to understand I'm mimicking what these animals ate in the wild. So when they killed something, they would tear through the abdomen. They got some fur and some fiber in their mouth. They would disembowel that animal because they're going for organ meat. So in the process of pulling out the intestines, they would have bitten it. Some of it would have torn. They would have got some of that digestive juice in their mouth, which is all of that fermented food, rich in pre and probiotics. And then they would have headed for the organ meats, and they would have eaten things like kidney and liver and spleen and pancreas. And they also ate organ meat, and they also chewed on bone. So all of and cartilage, because they would have, whatever they're going to eat on that animal, they would have eaten all parts of that animal. When we're talking a balanced raw diet, it means that it's a balanced diet of meat, fat, bone, and organ meat in a proportion that would be sustainable for that animal. If you only fed meat, then the calcium phosphorus ratio in the body would become imbalanced and you're going to lead to bone problems. So that's step number one. It needs to be balanced. Step number two, it needs to come from a healthy source. So I actually have my own raw food company, disclaimer, and I ended up doing my own raw food company because I couldn't find a commercial company who was willing to do it to the standards that I needed it to be done at because of my cancer patients. My cancer patients can't afford another drop of toxicity. They're already overwhelmed. So I started a company, and one of the first hurdles we had to go across was in order to sell a diet and call it complete and balanced, you have to add in vitamins, minerals, and fatty acids. Well, if you add in synthetic vitamins, minerals, and fatty acids, you've defeated the purpose of a healthy diet. And if you add natural ingredients, they're going to just decompose and they're not going to be adequate. So I thought, what do I do differently? And then I thought, how easy, just don't call it complete and balanced. And so what I did is I created a macronutrient diet, meat, fat, bone, and organ meat, comes out of a USDA inspected facility, no salmonella, no listeria, no E. coli. It's been tested by a USDA certified facility, and then it's flash frozen as soon as it's processed, and that's how it's shipped. And we ship throughout the United States and Canada. So that's my macronutrients. Now, we all know, you're in the nutrition world, that our food is nutrient depleted. So even though I live in a food forest and I grow my own food, I don't know what the quality of my soil is. I don't know what my micronutrients are. I don't know what the minerals are. I don't know the vitamin content of the different fruits and vegetables that I'm growing. So the essential nutrients are those nutrients that the body cannot manufacture in sufficient quantities on its own. So we have to supplement that because we can't guarantee it's in our food.
Mm-hmm.
So essential vitamins, essential minerals, essential fatty acids. And in my world, I also do the essential amino acids because, again, don't think we can guarantee that we're getting them. We can get into the shikimate pathway and how that affects plants, but we're losing a lot of the tricyclic amines that aren't produced, that are the foundation for making our neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and phenylalanine. So we're losing some of our ability to actually synthesize the essential amino acids. So I just supplement them. And because I have them in a separate form, they're all organic. They are dosed based on body weight and on biological need. Where when you're feeding a diet and it says it's complete and balanced, and first of all, every bite is not equal. So you're taking a Chihuahua versus a Great Dane. Are they really getting the same amount of nutrients that they need for their body? No one's been able to ever diagnose that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just separated it so I can make sure that I know that my patients are getting those essential nutrients that they need to have, period. All right. So are we together on that step?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then we work on replenishing the microbiome. I don't use commercial probiotics. I use fermented foods because, again, in the wild, they were eating the fermented intestinal tract of the animal that they killed. So I like to go to things that are going to help restore the microbiome and the diversity of the microbiome. We are made up of trillions of organisms. And when you're taking a capsule or a powder that says, oh, there's X number of billion units of 3 to 10 organisms, well, if you're doing that day in and day out, then those become the bullies that populate the gut, and they keep the gut from having the diversity that it needs. And there's white papers on this. So it's not a made up idea. It's really proven that when you don't eat a diversified amount of pre and probiotics, that you get these monocultures that start to develop. And temporarily, it may seem like a good thing, but in the long run, you're inhibiting diversity. And we are using the genomic information from these microbes to help run our DNA pathways. So if you don't have that diversity, you are really inhibiting your body's intelligence.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing that I'm going to say, and I know everybody who's listening is going to have this question. They're like, I barely have money to feed my family right now. Okay. My kids. I barely have the resources to pay for the dinner that's on my table right now. So I think this is an important conversation to have because people, it's the way it is. Like, sorry, but my daughter is going to come over my dog. Always. It's my daughter. So I have to look for the most cost efficient way that I could keep my family healthy and keep my pets healthy and also have enough time to do it all. So where does one start?
I'm going to flip the story on you. When your dog got sick, did you take it to the vet?
Yes.
Did you spend money?
Yes.
People, when their animals get sick, do not toss them out and get a new one. It's not like a car. These are their family members. So what's happening is they start out saying what you said, well, I can't afford it. But yet when that animal gets sick, they spend thousands of dollars trying to save that animal's life, whether it's through guilt or passion or dedication, whatever. They're spending the money, but they're spending it on broke care. So if you think about it that way, if you are going to have a pet in your life and you want to start being proactive, if you feed them a species appropriate diet, they're not going to get sick. You don't have to spend money on broke care. And in the long run, you save money. And in the life of that animal, you've extended their life, their longevity, and their quality of life. Because nobody just goes, oh, let me get a new dog. Well, I do have one person that I recently met.
I was going to say, I know some, but I do know some.
See Justin on my website because he was the kind of owner that said, well, I mean, he did bring his dog in because his dog had chronic ear infections and chronic health issues and spent some money on the dog. But he didn't want to hear that there was a preventative option. And in fact, he even said, oh, all my dogs have died of cancer. I'll just get a new one. So for him, he's just a pet owner that just gets a new animal. But that is really the rare person that I meet. Most of my parents are going to spend thousands of dollars, money that they have to get strapped with to be able to try to save their pet. So people do spend the money, Sandy. It's just whether they're going to spend it up front to be healthy. Same thing with ourselves, right? I'm almost 70 years old. I didn't have health care until I turned 65. The government made me get health care. Otherwise, I never would have gotten health care. The last time I went to a doctor was when I had my second child, and I take care of myself. I watch what I eat. I reduce my toxins. I live the 6-step principle that I teach my pet parents to follow, but I live it. So I don't spend a lot of money on jewelry. I don't spend a lot of money on clothes, but I spent a lot of money on quality of food and the quality of products that touch my skin and that I breathe. So I'm really passionate about that, and it makes a difference. So we're going to pay somebody. Are you going to pay the broke care system, or are you going to invest in your health and the health of your pet? Now, if you already own a Great Dane, yeah, it's a lot to have to pay. But you would be shocked to know it is not that expensive to feed a pet a species appropriate diet. We have this misconception that it's going to be cost prohibitive, and it's not. Not at all.
Okay. I want to continue with a few questions that people had for me. And you don't have to talk to me about being proactive, because that's everything that I do. So we're kind of we are saying the exact same thing. We're speaking about humans and animals. So being proactive, quality ingredients within our bodies to really what is almost innate as like humans. Like I personally try to emulate, although it's really hard to do. I try and emulate the way my parents ate. They ate with the seasons. They did eat animal protein, but they ate it whenever they could. It wasn't like you were stopping at McDonald's every single meal and eating a burger. So, I do feel that, something that is inherent in us is really, really valuable for our longevity. And it's the same for our animals. I agree with you 100%, Marlene. I think it's amazing.
I think we just have to change our belief system, because your question to me was spot on with what most people start.
Yeah, I'm trying to get in the head of all the people who are listening.
But when they add up what they spend at the vet,
yes,
for sick, broke care visits, and they realize they could have taken that money and prevented. And it's not just the money that they spend, it's the heartache. Because no one wants to see their pet suffering, whether it's cancer or it's osteoarthritis or skin allergies and all of that. All of that is truly preventable if we keep the body healthy.
Okay. I saw one of your posts about, I think was it a Great Dane that had the skin allergies?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
This dog had been to 3 different veterinarians. The money that this woman spent was ungodly on antibiotics, steroids, injections, all of these things. And the dog didn't get better.
Yeah.
She came to me. I did spend, it was $1,000 workup. I did biopsies, I did cultures. I wasn't going to miss anything in this workup. And it came back allergic skin disease from the cultures and the biopsies. And so we literally changed the diet, got her off a kibble diet, restored health to the gut. And this dog in 3 weeks was totally healed.
Okay. Allergies are massive for dogs. I know. I don't know so much. My sister has a cat, and I know that her cat has gone through fur falling out and thyroid issues and, that kind of thing. But so I'll give you my example because I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Certain seasons, my dog goes crazy, itching and scratching. So I've done certain things that I knew were safe. Like I think it was bee pollen for dogs. I think it was bee pollen. There were a few things. So you're saying if I change her food to a raw food diet, that would help with allergies.
I'm saying that if you feed a species appropriate diet, you find out what her deficiencies are, I will almost guarantee your dog is going to be vitamin D deficient. And vitamin D is essential in the innate immune system. So if you find out what she's deficient in and you make those up, and you find out what she's toxic in, heavy metals in particular, and you are able to chelate and reduce that load, and you are able to heal the leaky gut, reducing the inflammation, your dog will not have the same symptoms. So we are a society that has been trained to name it, blame it. I started our conversation with that. And it's all about symptom suppression. Even what you were just talking about, oh, my dog has allergies certain times of the year, so I do things to mitigate the symptom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, the root cause comes from a deficiency and or a toxicity, usually a combination, mitochondrial dysfunction, which all lead to inflammation causing leaky gut, which allows things to come into the body that shouldn't. The liver sees these foreign materials, mounts a cytokine storm to take care of them, which is what it's supposed to do. And that's the underlying cause of disease. It is so simple.
But how simple is it for me to get these tests done and know exactly what she's deficient in?
Yeah, I do it every day.
You do it, but you want to come to Toronto, Marlene? I would love it.
I can, but see, this is the cool thing. I can send you a test kit.
Yeah.
Well, let me back up. Let me do this for the audience. I have a program called the Empowered Pet Parent.
Okay.
In that program, it's a 3-hour program that teaches them all about the biology of their pet. It teaches them what tests they should be looking for to have done to test for the deficiencies and toxicities. So now they're empowered to understand that. It teaches them about gut health, microbiome, leaky gut, repair, species appropriate diet, the whole digestion process. Then it teaches them about detoxification of the 6 organs of elimination. It teaches them about the mitochondria. What can we do to help the mitochondria be the healthiest that they can be? They are the little organisms that are the power packs of our body.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gives us the energy to survive. It's the mitochondria also are the communication source between them and the microbiome. So they're also the ones that are helping to communicate what to turn on and what to turn off in our DNA. So all of that communication is happening in our fascia, which is another whole topic. But my point is that I teach all the pet parents how to understand their pet's biology. So they are no longer stuck with fast, cheap, and convenient. They understand the differences. They understand what they have to do in order to get their pet healthier. And now they can ask the right questions. So for anybody who does the Empowered Pet Parent course, we can send them the test kits to be able to test for deficiencies, to test for toxicity. They just go to their veterinarian, get the veterinarian to draw the blood, process it. It even has its own shipping labels. It goes to the laboratories and then it'll come back to me for analysis. And that's part of my wellness program. Yeah. So it really isn't hard. Thank you for asking the question that way. It's just a process of understanding the need and then following through. And I'll tell you something, Sandy, because I do so much testing, that's where I always start. I just had a 13-month-old Australian Shepherd that came in with a skin rash, very astute young mom. And she said, I want to know what's causing it because she's had pets before. She's gone down the road of symptom suppression and relapse, and she wanted it fixed. When we tested this dog was deficient in over 9 essential nutrients and had over 5 toxic heavy metals. She was 1 year old. And then I had another dog who was 4 months old, came in because it was limping, didn't get better at their veterinarian. And this dog also had deficiencies in vitamin D, magnesium, multiple essential nutrients, amino acids, and had a lot of toxic heavy metals. So I fixed the problem from the root, and each of these animals went back to thriving.
So those toxic heavy metals, are they coming from the kibble? This dog is so young. It's a 1-year-old dog, and they're getting all of these, these test results. I would assume it's from the food that they're eating and the environment, of course.
So let me cap. I have a 6-step process, which will make our conversation a little more cohesive for everybody. Step number 1, I teach people how to stop causing the problem. Where is it coming from? So we stop the pollution. And number 1 is food, which we just talked about, species appropriate diet, grass-fed, grass-finished, high in vitamin D, etc. Step number in the process of eliminating things is water. So water is another huge topic. I live in Florida. We have horrible water. Tap water in most areas of the United States have over 85,000 toxic ingredients, including glyphosate and heavy metals.
Mm-hmm.
Glyphosate is that ingredient in Roundup, which is now ubiquitous everywhere. And glyphosate literally melts the tight junctions in the GI tract. So imagine you have 2 cells and they're held together by these actin filaments. Glyphosate literally melts those actin filaments, and now you have a gap. And that gap allows things to come into the body. That gap is supposed to be like a piece of cheesecloth. It filters things so that only the right molecules can come in and everything else has to go out the poop chute. But when there's those holes in that cheesecloth occur, then things come in, they go to the liver. The liver's job is to recognize a foreign invader and mount the inflammatory response. And now imagine that inflammatory response is happening with every bite of every meal, every day of this pet's life or human, the same thing if you're eating bad foods. And that goes on and on and on. So over time, the body finally goes, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I'm doing nothing but trying to stomp out fires. So we start seeing autoimmune diseases, chronic degenerative diseases, and ultimately the most degenerative state of all is cancer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to do some question firing.
Let me finish number 1 because I kind of paused to see if you had a question.
No.
We talked about topic pollution.
Okay.
Environment.
Yes.
Things that are touching our skin, the electromagnetic frequencies that we're exposed to, our cell phones, our cell towers, the 5G, the routers, all of that's important. And the last one is the ants in our brain. That's the ants in our human brains. Those are automatic negative thoughts. And they're extremely important because when we are creating these negative thoughts, we're creating these neurotransmitters that are being entrained to our pets as well. So when we are in a negative state, we talked about high sympathetic state, all of that is in training to our pets and creating more and more dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
That's all step number 1.
Okay. Now, I have to get to all of these questions. We are just over an hour because I think that these are questions that, everybody's going to have. And one of them is all of these vaccines. Are they necessary? Are they important? I've heard, conflicting information on vaccines. I don't even know what to think.
We definitely over vaccinate. The vaccine companies are now starting to modify their vaccine protocols. The one vaccine that we cannot get around is rabies because that is a mandate. But they've now gone to a 3-year rabies. So a puppy, when they first get their first rabies shot, we don't even vaccinate our puppies for rabies until they're 6 months old. So we wait a little longer than most. And then they have to get boosted by law one more time at the next year. And then after that, they get a 3-year vaccine. That's the only one that I don't go against the grain. Now, if somebody doesn't bring their dog in, there's no rabies police that are going to go out in my area. I'm not going to report them, but that's on them. We vaccinate our puppies starting at 14 weeks of age, not 6 weeks, because maternal antibodies are still present at 6 weeks of age. That blocks the vaccine.
I just have to say something, because in one of my courses, when I did my diploma, it was very specifically specified, wait until your baby is 2 years old. Same thing, Marlene. Same thing.
Yeah, maternal antibodies are blocking these pet vaccines. So we wait till they're 14 to 16 weeks of age to do their first distemper parvo shot. And then we booster that one time, 2 to 3 weeks later. And then from then on, we do titers. If the titers fall, it's a blood test to see if there's adequate levels of antibodies there. And if that titer falls, and it's usually, in fact, university studies have shown that one distemper shot is good for up to 7 to 9 years.
Wow.
We only have titers for dogs right now, but the same applies to cats. So we know we don't have to continually vaccinate them every year. In fact, there's several companies that have 3-year vaccines. So they're already at the 3-year mark. The other thing I want to point out is there are mercury-free vaccines available. So we use thimerosal-free vaccines. And I like to help people understand what their risk factors are. If they're to dog parks, if they're going to dog shows, if they have a lot of exposure to other animals, then you want to have your dog's immune system be up to par. But vaccines do not make you healthy, and vaccines do not prevent disease.
Right.
I say that vaccines do not make you healthy, and they do not prevent disease. They are designed to stimulate your immune system so that when it sees that virus or whatever, that it can mount in a response quicker. So it lessens the severity of the disease. But even on the labels, it always says only vaccinate healthy animals.
Yes.
So for every pet parent out there, I want you to hear this. If your animal has any health condition, grumbly tummy, skin problems, ear infections, and things like that, do not vaccinate that animal until you have resolved the root cause of why that animal is having a challenge. Obesity is not a healthy animal. Right? So if your animal is overweight, by definition, they are not healthy. So that's really, really important.
So Marlene, sorry, is that for acute and chronic? Both?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you're chronically having challenges, the immune system is working really hard to deal with that chronicity. And now you're throwing a vaccine on top of that. And the immune system goes, wait a minute. I don't understand. Do you want me to split my attention? Do you want me to do this halfway, that halfway? Do you want me to ignore that? What do you want me to do? And we start seeing more severe reactions. And sometimes it's what tips these animals over the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I have to ask you about flea and ticks and heartworm. Those are big. Like, I mean, I walk my dog in forests. She's had a tick on her before. What are our best options for this?
The way I want to answer that is twofold. So, number one, the best health thing you can do is support a healthy immune system. Good diet, good water, good environment,
yeah.
Right? All of that. Like, we're coming back to the basics. That's number one. I live in flea and tick capital of the US. All the flea studies that are done literally within 50-mile radius of my office. So we are endemic. So I think it is extremely important that we learn discernment. We learn how to use our conscious brain and critical thinking and ask the question, A, am I spending the right amount of time and attention to keep my animal healthy? Focus on that. And two, if you're in a risk burden area where fleas are a problem, ticks, we certainly know carry Lyme's disease and all kinds of other issues. If that is a risk in your area, then to me, the benefits of prevention outweigh the risk of contracting the problem or dealing with flea allergy dermatitis from that little bit of insecticide you use. Now, having said that, there are safer products than what is on the market. I have not found a holistic solution to flea control and tick control. Just, that's my disclaimer. But I use safer products that don't have as much of the toxins in them. And that's for fleas and ticks. So if somebody wants to private message me, I don't want to say names on, but I'll give recommendations if they want to do the pet parent course. We do offer consultation with that as well. So heartworms. I live in the most endemic state for heartworm disease. It is a big deal. It's spread by mosquitoes. You can't prevent it. Like you can't prevent mosquitoes from biting your dog. I have mosquitoes that periodically come into the house, just opening the door, the mosquito comes in. So I think, in my opinion, heartworm prevention is a crucial step. But again, I don't use any of the chewables because they're loaded with toxins. I use one product, which is as natural as you can get. It isn't made commercially anymore. We use it off label and we make it for our clients. And so it doesn't have any side effects. Super, super, super safe. It's used during COVID. It's a very commonly known product. And that's what I use for my heartworm prevention.
Okay.
There's no added.
Do you have this information on your website where people can get access to it?
That is done in a consultation. We do that one-on-one.
Okay. Here's another question. What are your thoughts on your dog sleeping in your bed with you? There's so many different opinions on this. I am a do not let if she's clean, has had a bath, I'll let her come for a visit, but she doesn't sleep in my bed. So I'm just curious what your thoughts.
I think that everybody needs to choose their own. My cat used to sleep on my head,
Yeah.
I would be very still and not want to disturb him. So that's a question I think everybody should just on their own decide what they want to do, because I don't think that's a health issue.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
That's not a health issue. I think that's more of companionship. If your animal is keeping you from getting a good night's sleep, you need to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So those are different kinds of questions. But I also nursed my kids until they were respectively 4 years of age, and they slept with me in my bed when they were little. And to me, I do what feels good and what's comfortable and what works for the whole family.
Okay. So you would not say there are any health hazards to your pet sleeping with you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. This has been a very information-packed episode. And I think there's obviously one massive theme is don't feed your pets garbage.
100%. So the 6 steps, we didn't finish them, but if your audience wants to download, it's a free ebook. It's called Holistic Healing Vet, VET, like vet, I'm a vet, holistichealingvet.com. They can download the ebook and they can get the other 4 steps for the things that they can do. It's easy to follow. They're really not hard principles. And honestly, we vote with our dollars. And so when we use discernment on how we spend our dollars and we vote for healthier options, healthier laundry soaps, which I do have lots of recommendations, when we vote for healthier foods, then the food industry and the big box companies they're going to follow the money. So when enough of us say no to the toxins and we show them that we're serious about keeping our families healthy, then they will follow suit. 20 years ago, Walmart started carrying organic flaxseed and organic chia seeds in 5-pound bags.
Yes.
They saw the trend. They saw that people were starting to become more health conscious, and they were in the forerunning of that. And now we see restaurants that are opening that are talking about farm to table and all organic and gluten free and no seed oils. And that's my life. So now, because people are starting to demand it, we're seeing companies offer that. And so that would be my take home message for everybody that's listening, is really to decide what's important to you. And if it's your health and your family's health and your pet's health, then take the time to learn what choices you can make that are going to impact you the most, and then stick to that. It's really not more expensive in the long run because you're paying one way or the other. And I'd rather pay upfront for my health than to deal with my dis-ease afterwards.
Beautiful. That's a great way to end. Thank you so much, Marlene. I really appreciate your time today, and I will have all the links in the show notes. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to share it with someone you know might benefit. And always remember, when you rate, review, subscribe, you help to support my content and help me to keep going and bringing these conversations to you each and every week. Join me next week for a new topic, new guest, new exciting conversations to help you live your best life.